The strongest secrets are never hidden behind locked doors. They are hidden inside the hearts of people who refuse to let a child cry alone. Every employee inside Whitmore Holdings knew that Daniel Whitmore valued order above everything else. Meetings started exactly on time. Reports were expected to be flawless. Excuses never impressed him. As the respected head of a powerful business empire, Daniel had built a reputation for remaining calm under pressure, reading every situation with remarkable precision, and rarely allowing emotion to influence his judgment. That Monday morning appeared no different. The executive floor buzzed quietly as assistants organized schedules and department heads prepared for the weekly leadership meeting. Olivia Carter, Daniel's trusted secretary, moved through the hallway with her usual grace and confidence. She greeted everyone with a warm smile, while carrying a neatly arranged folder filled with contracts waiting for Daniel's review. She was known throughout the company for her professionalism, kindness, and ability to solve impossible problems before anyone else even noticed them. Few people knew anything about her personal life, and she preferred it that way. As she reached the conference room, the elevator doors suddenly opened behind her. Tiny footsteps echoed across the polished marble floor. Before anyone could react, a little girl no older than 5 years old ran straight toward Olivia with sparkling eyes and a joyful smile that instantly brightened the room. Without hesitation, she wrapped both arms tightly around Olivia's waist and laughed with complete innocence. "Mommy, I finally found you." The hallway became perfectly silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Even the security staff exchanged confused glances. Olivia froze. The color slowly disappeared from her face as she looked down at the little girl clinging to her. For one long moment, she simply closed her eyes as though she had been waiting for this impossible moment while praying it would never happen. Daniel stepped out of his office after hearing the unexpected commotion. His sharp blue eyes settled first on Olivia, then on the smiling child, and finally on the stunned employees surrounding them. He did not speak immediately. Years of experience had taught him that silence often revealed more than questions. Olivia carefully knelt beside the little girl and gently brushed a strand of curly hair away from her face. Her voice remained soft, but there was unmistakable emotion hidden beneath every word. "Sweetheart, you should not be here." The child only smiled wider and held Olivia's hand even tighter. "But you promised you would come home today." A quiet gasp spread across the hallway. Daniel watched every expression, every movement, every hesitation. Olivia had never mentioned having a daughter. Human resources contained no emergency contact listing a child. Her background check had revealed nothing unusual. Yet the little girl's voice carried the certainty that only genuine love could create. Olivia slowly stood and looked directly at Daniel. For the first time since joining his company 3 years earlier, she seemed completely uncertain. "Sir," she whispered, struggling to keep her composure, "I am so sorry for this interruption." Daniel remained expressionless. "Is there something you need to explain?" Olivia's fingers trembled almost invisibly as she looked from Daniel to the child holding her hand. The little girl leaned comfortably against her side, completely unaware that every adult in the room was waiting for an answer that could change everything. After several painful seconds, Olivia quietly shook her head. "No, sir." Daniel studied her face carefully. "Then why is she calling you Mom?" Olivia lowered her eyes, gently squeezed the little girl's hand, and answered with a voice barely louder than a breath. "I cannot explain." The silence that followed felt heavier than any confession, and as Daniel looked at the child smiling peacefully beside the woman who refused to tell the truth, he realized that whatever secret Olivia Carter had been carrying was far bigger than anyone inside Whitmore Holdings could possibly imagine. Daniel Whitmore remained standing in the hallway long after everyone else slowly returned to work, yet his attention never drifted away from Olivia Carter and the little girl holding her hand with complete trust. The elevator doors eventually closed behind the last curious employee, leaving only an uncomfortable silence between them. Olivia gently knelt once more and smiled at the child with remarkable tenderness despite the obvious worry in her eyes. "Sweetheart, would you wait with Miss Harper in the reception lounge for a few minutes?" she asked softly. The little girl nodded without hesitation and happily accepted the receptionist's hand before skipping away with innocent confidence. She glanced back only once and waved enthusiastically. "See you soon, Mommy." Olivia forced another smile until the child disappeared around the corner. Only then did the weight she had been carrying become visible. Daniel quietly gestured toward his office. "Come in." Olivia followed him without protest. The office door closed behind them, shutting out the whispers already spreading across the executive floor. Daniel walked toward the large windows overlooking the city before turning to face her. His expression remained calm, but his questions were precise. "You have worked for me for 3 years. Your employment records show no marriage, no children, and no dependents. Human Resources confirmed every document before you were hired. Yet today a little girl confidently called you her mother. Help me understand what happened." Olivia lowered her eyes. "I understand why you are asking." Daniel waited. She remained silent. Several seconds passed before he spoke again. "Are your records inaccurate?" "No." "Is she your biological daughter?" Olivia slowly shook her head. "Then why does she believe you are her mother?" Her lips parted as if the answer was finally coming, but the words never arrived. Instead, she quietly replied, "I cannot explain right now." Daniel studied her face carefully. He had spent years recognizing deception during difficult negotiations, but something about Olivia felt different. She did not appear dishonest. She looked heartbroken. After dismissing her to continue the workday, Daniel picked up the phone and contacted his chief of security, Michael Brooks. "I need a confidential background review," he said evenly. "Only facts. No rumors. Verify every public record connected to Olivia Carter. Education, employment, financial history, family records, hospital records where legally available, everything." Michael answered immediately. "I will begin now." Throughout the afternoon, Daniel found himself unusually distracted. Olivia continued performing every responsibility with her usual professionalism, answering calls, organizing meetings, and preparing contracts as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet every time she believed no one was watching, her eyes drifted toward the reception lounge where the little girl quietly colored pictures under the supervision of the office staff. The child smiled at everyone, thanked employees politely, and seemed perfectly comfortable inside the building. Late that evening, Michael returned with the preliminary report. "Everything matches her original background check," he explained. "No marriage license. No birth certificate connected to her. No adoption records. No custody filings. No evidence that she has ever legally raised a child." Daniel frowned. "Nothing. Nothing." It is almost as though the little girl appeared from nowhere. Daniel closed the folder and stared at Olivia's employee photograph clipped to the front. Every document insisted one story was true. Every instinct told him another story was waiting beneath the surface. As the office lights dimmed and employees headed home, he noticed Olivia leave the building with the little girl asleep peacefully against her shoulder. She looked exhausted, but the gentle way she held the child revealed a bond that no official document could ever explain. And for the first time in many years, Daniel realized that the mystery before him could not be solved by paperwork alone. The following morning arrived with an uneasy calm that lingered over Whitmore Holdings like an unanswered question. Although every department operated on schedule, quiet conversations paused whenever Olivia Carter walked through the hallway. She greeted everyone with the same kindness she always had, refusing to acknowledge the curious looks that followed her. Daniel Whitmore noticed every detail from the glass wall of his office. He had expected Olivia to avoid eye contact or appear distracted after the previous day's events, yet she continued her work with remarkable composure. Still, something had changed. Beneath her professional smile was a quiet sadness that had never been there before. Shortly before noon, Daniel left his office to review construction plans for a new corporate foundation project. As he crossed the executive floor, he heard a familiar laugh coming from the employee lounge. Curious, he stopped just outside the open doorway. The little girl sat at a small table surrounded by colored pencils and sheets of paper. Olivia was kneeling beside her, helping her draw a bright yellow sun in the corner of the page. The child looked up and smiled with complete happiness. "Mommy, does the sun always smile like this?" Olivia laughed softly. "Only when someone gives it a reason." The little girl nodded with complete confidence and carefully added a wide smile to the drawing. Daniel remained hidden for another moment. There was nothing forced about their interaction. Every smile, every glance, every gentle word felt natural, as though they had shared countless afternoons exactly like this one. It was impossible to believe they barely knew each other. Before Daniel could quietly walk away, the little girl noticed him standing near the doorway. Her eyes immediately brightened. "Good afternoon, Mr. Daniel." Olivia turned around, visibly surprised. She stood quickly. "I apologize, sir." She insisted on waiting here until I finished organizing the afternoon schedule. Daniel looked at the colorful drawing lying on the table. "What is your name?" The little girl answered proudly. "My name is Lily." Daniel offered a polite smile. "That is a beautiful drawing, Lily." She held the paper toward him with complete confidence. "Mommy says everybody has light inside their heart, even when they forget where it is." Daniel accepted the drawing without thinking. The simple words lingered in his mind far longer than he expected. Few adults spoke with that kind of quiet hope anymore. Yet this child repeated them as though they were the most natural truth in the world. Olivia gently touched Lily's shoulder. "It is time to finish lunch." Lily nodded obediently before looking back at Daniel. "Will you eat with us someday?" Daniel hesitated. He could not remember the last time anyone had invited him to lunch without expecting something in return. "Perhaps," he answered honestly. Lily smiled as though that single word was already a promise. Later that afternoon, Daniel found himself staring once again at the drawing resting on his desk. It was nothing more than colorful crayon lines, yet somehow it made the office feel less cold. Michael Brooks entered quietly with another update. "I spoke with several former co-workers," he reported. "Everyone describes Olivia the same way. Honest, dependable, generous. No one has ever heard her mention a daughter." Daniel leaned back in silence. The evidence continued to contradict itself. Official records denied any connection. Personal observations suggested something deeper than biology. As evening approached, Daniel watched Olivia and Lily leave the building together once again. Lily reached up and slipped her small hand into Olivia's without hesitation, while Olivia instinctively adjusted the little girl's jacket before they stepped into the cool evening air. It was such a simple gesture that most people would never notice it, but Daniel did. People could pretend for a few minutes. They could rehearse convincing words. They could even fabricate convincing stories. Yet genuine care revealed itself in the smallest habits, and the quiet affection between Olivia and Lily looked far too real to have been invented, leaving Daniel more determined than ever to uncover the truth hidden behind the little girl who refused to call anyone else her mother. Over the next several days, the unexpected moment that had frozen the executive floor refused to disappear from people's memories. Although no one openly questioned Olivia Carter during office hours, quiet conversations often stopped the instant she entered a room. Curious glances replaced cheerful greetings, and whispered assumptions traveled much faster than facts. Olivia never defended herself. She continued arriving before sunrise, organizing Daniel Whitmore's demanding schedule, preparing every meeting with perfect accuracy, and treating every employee with the same patience she had always shown. If the rumors reached her ears, she gave no sign. Yet Daniel noticed the small changes no one else seemed to recognize. She skipped lunch more often. She lingered beside the office windows after sunset for a few extra moments before collecting Lily from the reception lounge. The bright confidence that once defined her smile now seemed carefully maintained rather than naturally felt. Daniel found himself paying closer attention than he intended. One afternoon, while reviewing financial reports, he heard two junior managers speaking quietly outside his office. They lowered their voices, believing no one could hear them. "Do you think she lied on her employment forms?" one whispered. "Maybe," the other replied. "Or maybe she has been hiding something all these years." Before another word could be spoken, Daniel opened the office door. Both employees immediately stood in silence. His expression remained calm, but his voice carried unmistakable authority. "Speculation is not evidence. I expect professionalism inside this company." They apologized without hesitation and quickly returned to work. Daniel closed the door again, surprised by his own reaction. Only a week earlier, he would have ignored idle conversations as unimportant distractions. Now, hearing Olivia judged without proof unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Later that afternoon, Olivia entered his office with a stack of contracts awaiting his signature. She placed each folder neatly on his desk exactly as she always did. "Your meeting with the foundation board has been moved to 3 o'clock, she said softly. Daniel looked up from the documents. "Have the comments around the office been bothering you?" Olivia paused for a brief moment before answering. People usually fear what they do not understand. I cannot blame them for asking questions. You could answer those questions, Daniel replied. A faint smile crossed her face, though sadness remained in her eyes. Some truths belong to more than one person. Until everyone involved is ready, silence is sometimes the kindest choice. Daniel studied her carefully. There was no resentment in her voice, only quiet conviction. Before he could respond, a soft knock interrupted the conversation. Lily peeked around the partially open door with a handmade paper flower in her tiny hand. "Excuse me," she said politely. "May I come in?" Daniel nodded. She walked directly toward his desk and placed the colorful flower beside his coffee cup. "I made this for your office because it looks serious all the time." Daniel looked at the unevenly folded paper petals and unexpectedly smiled. "Thank you, Lily." She beamed with pride before turning toward Olivia. "Mommy, are you finished working soon?" Olivia gently brushed Lily's hair behind her ear. "Just a little longer." Lily nodded, completely satisfied with the answer, then quietly walked back into the hallway. Daniel watched the exchange without saying a word. The affection between them remained effortless, untouched by the opinions surrounding them. After Olivia left the office, Daniel picked up the small paper flower. It was imperfect, slightly crooked, and carefully made by tiny hands that simply wanted to brighten someone else's day. At that moment, he realized something important. Every document, every investigation, and every unanswered question had focused on whether Olivia deserved to be trusted. Yet after observing her day after day, a different question quietly settled into his mind. If she was protecting such a carefully guarded secret, perhaps the mystery was never about what Olivia had done, but about whom she had been trying to protect all along. The questions surrounding Olivia Carter refused to fade, but Daniel Whitmore no longer believed the answers could be found inside employee records or confidential reports. Facts had brought him to a dead end, while simple moments between Olivia and Lily continued revealing something far more meaningful than paperwork ever could. Late one Thursday evening, after the final executive meeting ended, Daniel noticed Olivia leaving the building earlier than usual with Lily quietly holding her hand. Acting on instinct rather than suspicion, he instructed his driver to follow at a respectful distance. He did not want to invade her privacy. He simply wanted to understand the life she had worked so hard to keep separate from the office. Their journey led away from the city's financial district into a peaceful neighborhood lined with old maple trees and modest brick homes. Eventually, Olivia stopped in front of a small community center connected to a neighborhood outreach program. It was not the place Daniel had expected. Through the windshield, he watched Olivia help Lily out of the car before carrying several grocery bags toward the entrance. Curious, Daniel remained outside for several minutes before quietly approaching on foot. Through a large window, he saw a scene that immediately challenged every assumption he had made. Inside, several elderly women sat together around a long table working on handmade quilts while children completed homework nearby. The atmosphere was warm, filled with gentle laughter and the comforting sound of people who genuinely cared for one another. The moment Olivia entered, smiles appeared across every face. One elderly woman stood carefully with the assistance of a cane and embraced her with obvious affection. Lily happily ran toward another little boy, and within seconds the children were laughing together over a board game. Olivia unpacked fresh fruit, bread, milk, and medicine from the grocery bags before helping prepare dinner as though this had been her routine for years. Daniel remained outside, watching quietly through the window. There was no audience here, no executives to impress, no reputation to protect. Every kind gesture came naturally. After nearly an hour, Olivia carried a tray of soup to the elderly woman who had welcomed her. She patiently adjusted the woman's blanket, checked that she had taken her medication, and listened with complete attention as the woman spoke. The expression on Olivia's face was the same one Daniel had seen whenever she comforted Lily, gentle, patient, and completely genuine. As Daniel prepared to leave unnoticed, the community center director stepped outside to lock the front gate. Seeing Daniel standing nearby, the older gentleman offered a friendly smile. "Are you looking for someone?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "I know Olivia Carter through work." The director's eyes brightened with recognition. "Then you already know one of the finest people I have ever met." Daniel listened quietly. "She comes here almost every evening," the director continued. "She never asks for recognition. She simply helps wherever she is needed. The children adore her, and the seniors say she reminds them that kindness still exists. Daniel glanced back through the window where Lily had climbed onto a chair beside Olivia, happily helping arrange dinner plates for everyone in the room. "Does Lily live here?" he asked carefully. The director smiled gently, but shook his head. "That is not my story to tell." Before Daniel could ask another question, Olivia looked toward the window for a brief moment. Their eyes nearly met, and Daniel instinctively stepped back into the evening shadows before quietly returning to his car. During the drive home, he said almost nothing. For the first time since Lily had walked into Whitmore Holdings calling Olivia her mother, Daniel felt his curiosity slowly transforming into admiration. Whatever secret Olivia continued to protect, it clearly was not rooted in selfishness or deception. Instead, every step she took outside the office revealed a woman who quietly carried the burdens of many people without asking for anything in return, leaving Daniel with the growing certainty that the truth, when it finally came, would reveal a sacrifice far greater than anyone inside his company had ever imagined. The quiet visit to the community center stayed with Daniel Whitmore long after he returned home. For the first time in years, a mystery no longer felt like a problem waiting to be solved. Instead, it felt like a story waiting to be understood. The following week, he found himself noticing details that had once escaped his attention. Every morning Olivia Carter arrived, carrying an extra lunch bag. Every afternoon she quietly set aside untouched pastries from executive meetings instead of allowing them to be discarded. Every evening she left the office with the same steady purpose, never rushing, never complaining, and never asking anyone for help. She carried responsibility as naturally as breathing. Daniel no longer questioned her in front of others. He sensed that pressing for answers would only deepen the walls she had carefully built around herself. Instead, he chose to observe with patience. One afternoon, after the final meeting ended earlier than expected, Daniel stepped into the employee lounge and found Lily sitting alone at a small table, carefully arranging puzzle pieces into the shape of a colorful house. Olivia had stepped away to print several documents, leaving Lily happily occupied. The little girl looked up and smiled the moment she saw him. "Hello, Mr. Daniel. Do you want to help?" He sat across from her, surprising even himself. "I think I can manage a few puzzle pieces." Lily giggled as he searched for the right corner. "Mommy says you always look serious because you think too much." Daniel raised an eyebrow with amused curiosity. "Does she really say that?" Lily nodded. "She also says serious people usually have the biggest hearts. They just forget to smile." Daniel laughed quietly, a sound so unfamiliar that even he barely recognized it. After several minutes, Lily proudly completed the puzzle. It showed a small family standing in front of a simple house beneath a bright blue sky. Daniel pointed toward the picture. "Is this your family?" Lily studied the image carefully before answering. "Families do not have to look the same. Mommy told me that." Her answer settled gently into the silence between them. "Did your mommy tell you anything else?" Daniel asked softly. Lily smiled as though repeating something precious. "She says love is something people choose every day. It is not something you can buy or count." Before Daniel could respond, Olivia returned carrying a folder. She paused at the doorway, surprised to find the two of them talking so comfortably. Lily immediately ran toward her. "Mr. Daniel helped me finish my puzzle." Olivia looked at Daniel with quiet gratitude. "Thank you for keeping her company." Daniel stood and handed the completed puzzle to Lily. She did most of the work. Lily hugged the puzzle against her chest before skipping toward the reception area. As soon as she disappeared around the corner, Daniel looked back at Olivia. "She is an extraordinary little girl." Olivia smiled, though emotion shimmered behind her eyes. "She has taught me far more than I have ever taught her." Daniel hesitated before asking the question that had occupied his thoughts for days. "Were you always part of her life?" Olivia looked toward the hallway where Lily's laughter echoed softly. For several long seconds, she remained silent. Finally, she answered with complete honesty, though not with the explanation Daniel expected. "No, there was a time when she did not know who I was." Daniel waited, sensing she had more to say. Olivia gently folded her hands together. "Sometimes life places a child in front of you for only a moment. You think you are simply helping them through one difficult day. Then one day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 year. And before you realize it, your heart no longer remembers where your own life ends and theirs begins." Daniel felt the meaning behind her words long before he understood the facts. "So she is not your biological daughter," he said quietly. Olivia slowly shook her head. "No." It was the first direct answer she had given since everything began. Yet before Daniel could ask another question, Olivia whispered one final sentence that carried far more weight than the answer itself. "But I made someone a promise that I have never broken. And until that promise is fulfilled, Lily deserves to believe she has never spent a single day in this world without a mother who loves her." As Daniel watched Olivia walk toward the waiting child, he realized the mystery had finally begun to open. But the most important part of the story was still hidden behind a promise made years ago, a promise strong enough to shape two lives and powerful enough to keep the truth buried until the right moment finally arrived. Daniel Whitmore could not stop thinking about Olivia Carter's final words. A promise. Not an excuse, not a carefully constructed story, but a promise strong enough to shape an entire life. During the following days, he found himself looking at Olivia differently. Instead of searching for inconsistencies, he noticed sacrifices. She always arrived before anyone else, yet she was usually the last person to leave. She quietly redirected part of her annual bonus to the company's charitable foundation without allowing her name to appear on the donor list. She remembered every employee's birthday, asked about aging parents, celebrated small achievements, and somehow found time to comfort people who believed no one had noticed their struggles. Daniel had always respected her efficiency. Now he began respecting her character. One rainy evening, after another long day at the office, Daniel received an unexpected phone call from the director of the community center. The older gentleman apologized for disturbing him, but explained that Olivia had accidentally left an important folder behind after delivering supplies. Since the director recognized Daniel's business card inside the folder, he wondered whether he could help return it. Daniel agreed without hesitation. When he arrived, the community center was unusually quiet. Most of the children had already gone home, and Lily had fallen asleep on a small sofa with a storybook resting gently across her chest. Olivia stood nearby, carefully folding blankets while speaking softly with the elderly woman Daniel had seen during his previous visit. Neither of them realized he had entered the hallway. "You cannot carry this burden forever," the elderly woman said with quiet concern. Olivia smiled gently. "It has never felt like a burden. She is growing older. One day she will ask more questions." Olivia lowered her eyes. "I know." The older woman reached for Olivia's hand. "Your sister would never have expected you to give up so much." Daniel froze where he stood. "Sister." The single word changed everything. Olivia closed her eyes for a brief moment before answering. "On her final night, she asked me for only one thing." She looked at Lily, then she looked at me, and she said, "Please let my little girl grow up believing she was always loved." I promised her that I would never let Lily feel abandoned, not even for a single day. The elderly woman gently squeezed Olivia's hand. "And so you became her mother." Tears shimmered in Olivia's eyes, though she never allowed them to fall. "No, I became the person my sister trusted most." Lily chose the word mother all by herself. The first time she called me that, I tried to correct her. She cried for hours because she believed she had done something wrong. I never corrected her again. Daniel quietly stepped back before they noticed him. His heart felt unexpectedly heavy. Every question he had carried for weeks suddenly disappeared, replaced by a deep admiration he had never anticipated. Olivia had not stolen someone's place. She had honored her sister's final wish with unwavering devotion. She had built a childhood filled with warmth instead of loss, even if it meant carrying every responsibility alone. The next morning, Daniel placed the forgotten folder on Olivia's desk before she arrived. Inside, he tucked a single handwritten note without signing his name. It read, "Some promises deserve respect, not judgment." When Olivia discovered the note later that morning, she immediately understood who had returned the folder. She looked toward Daniel's office through the glass wall. Their eyes met for only a brief moment. Daniel did not ask another question, and Olivia did not offer another explanation. Neither of them needed words anymore. Yet as Lily happily ran through the reception area carrying another colorful drawing for Daniel, neither adult realized that one final piece of the story still remained hidden, because the greatest promise Olivia had made was not the one she had spoken aloud, but the one she had silently carried every single day since the moment she chose to love a little girl as though she had always been her own. The atmosphere inside Whitmore Holdings began to change in ways that surprised even the people who worked there every day. The quiet rumors that had once followed Olivia Carter through the hallways gradually disappeared, not because anyone had discovered her secret, but because Daniel Whitmore unknowingly changed the tone of the entire company. During executive meetings, he openly acknowledged Olivia's dedication whenever major projects succeeded. He asked for her opinion in front of senior leadership, trusted her judgment without hesitation, and treated her with the same respect he expected every employee to receive. No formal announcement was ever made, yet everyone noticed that the man who rarely defended anyone now refused to tolerate careless assumptions or unfair gossip. His example quietly reshaped the culture around him. One Friday afternoon, Daniel called Olivia into his office after the final meeting ended. She entered carrying her usual notebook, expecting another list of appointments. Instead, Daniel handed her a folder containing a proposal for a new community partnership. She opened it slowly, her eyes widening as she recognized the name of the neighborhood center where she volunteered almost every evening. The company has been looking for a long-term outreach project, Daniel explained calmly. After careful consideration, I believe this organization represents exactly the kind of values we should support. Olivia looked at him with visible surprise. This would provide meals, educational programs, transportation, and medical assistance for hundreds of families. Daniel nodded. That is the goal. She carefully closed the folder. Did you choose this because of me? Daniel smiled gently. I chose it because I finally understood that kindness deserves resources, not just admiration. For a brief moment, Olivia could not find the words to respond. The gratitude in her eyes spoke more clearly than any sentence. A week later, employees from Whitmore Holdings visited the community center for the first company volunteer event. Executives, assistants, accountants, and interns worked side by side repainting classrooms, organizing books, preparing meals, and planting flowers in the small courtyard. Lily happily guided everyone through the garden as though she had been appointed the official tour guide. She proudly introduced Daniel to every child she knew and laughed whenever he struggled to remember their names. Watching him kneel to help several children assemble a wooden bookshelf, Olivia realized she was seeing a side of him that few people ever had. The distance and formality that once surrounded him had quietly softened. Near sunset, the elderly woman, who had known Olivia's sister, approached Daniel with a warm smile. Thank you for believing in her, she said. Daniel looked toward Olivia, who was helping Lily hang colorful paper decorations in one of the classrooms. She never asked anyone to believe in her, he replied. She simply lived in a way that earned it. The older woman nodded with quiet satisfaction. That is exactly what her sister hoped would happen someday. As the celebration came to an end, Lily ran across the courtyard carrying 2 small paper bracelets she had woven during an art activity. She placed one around Olivia's wrist and the other around Daniel's before stepping back to admire her work. Now you both match, she announced proudly. Olivia laughed softly while Daniel looked down at the simple bracelet woven from colorful strips of paper. It held no financial value, yet somehow it felt more meaningful than many expensive gifts he had received over the years. As they prepared to leave, Lily slipped one hand into Olivia's and the other into Daniel's without thinking. Neither adult moved away. They simply walked together through the peaceful evening toward the parking lot while the golden light of the setting sun stretched across the quiet street. In that simple moment, Daniel realized he was no longer protecting Olivia because he felt responsible for solving a mystery. He was protecting the family she had built through love, loyalty, and a promise that had transformed loss into hope. And although the hardest chapters of their journey were finally behind them, he sensed that the future waiting ahead might offer all 3 of them something they had never expected to find together: the chance to build a new beginning instead of simply preserving the past. Several months passed, and the quiet transformation that had begun with one unexpected moment continued to shape every corner of Daniel Whitmore's life. Whitmore Holdings had become known not only for its remarkable success, but also for the compassion that now defined its culture. The partnership with the community center expanded beyond anyone's expectations, providing scholarships for children, wellness programs for seniors, and opportunities that reached families throughout the city. Employees volunteered together every month, and many admitted that helping others had given them a stronger sense of purpose than any professional achievement ever had. Daniel often visited the center without announcing his arrival. Sometimes he helped repair furniture. Sometimes he read storybooks to the children. Other times, he simply listened as the seniors shared memories from lives filled with joy, hardship, and resilience. Olivia Carter watched these quiet changes with growing admiration. The man who had once measured every decision through logic had discovered that the greatest investments were often made with kindness. One peaceful Saturday afternoon, Lily invited Daniel and Olivia to join the community center's annual family picnic. Blankets covered the green lawn, children chased colorful kites across the open field, and laughter floated through the warm summer air. Lily raced from one game to another before returning with a handmade picture frame she had painted herself. She proudly handed it to Olivia and Daniel together. Inside the frame was a photograph taken during the volunteer celebration a few weeks earlier. It showed Olivia smiling beside Lily while Daniel stood next to them, laughing at something the little girl had said. "This is my favorite picture," Lily whispered. Daniel looked at the photograph for a long moment before asking gently, "Why is it your favorite?" Lily smiled with complete innocence. "Because everybody looks like they are home." Her answer settled quietly into their hearts. Later that evening, after the picnic ended and Lily fell asleep on the drive home, Daniel and Olivia sat together on a bench outside the community center while the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the trees. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The peaceful silence needed no interruption. Finally, Olivia looked toward the building where so many lives had found comfort and hope. "For a long time, I believed keeping my promise meant carrying everything by myself," she said softly. "I never imagined someone else would choose to carry part of it with me." Daniel smiled warmly. "Your promise was never yours alone. The moment you chose love over convenience, it became something worth protecting." Olivia's eyes filled with quiet emotion. "Thank you for seeing the truth instead of believing the rumors." Daniel gently shook his head. "The truth was always there. I simply needed to learn how to recognize it." As they prepared to leave, Lily stirred sleepily in the back seat and opened her eyes just enough to see them standing together. She reached out her small hands with a contented smile. Without thinking, Olivia took one hand while Daniel held the other. Lily sighed happily and closed her eyes again. The simple gesture felt completely natural, as though it had always been meant to happen. In that quiet moment, Daniel finally understood that families are not defined by documents, appearances, or shared blood. They are built through promises that survive every hardship, through ordinary acts of kindness repeated every single day, and through the courage to love someone without expecting anything in return. The little girl who had once surprised an entire office by calling Olivia her mother had unknowingly given Daniel the greatest lesson of his life. Love had never asked for permission, and true family had never waited for perfect explanations. Sometimes the strongest bonds begin with a single act of compassion, grow through unwavering loyalty, and become unbreakable because someone chooses, every single day, to keep a promise made from the heart.